Hello and welcome to Expose Podcast. It has been a break. I took a break in doing this podcast while I have been grieving my life partner who passed away on cancer. And I've been doing my own therapy, like healing, but also working on my book, Becoming Sensitive Again. Many of you heard, oh, you are too sensitive, right? Or you felt like your sensitivity was something you rather do not have. For example, maybe, you know, every time somebody speaks, you notice their eyebrows going up and you feel that you said something wrong. Or maybe every time someone changes their tone of voice, you feel like that something happened. It's like it can be a superpower, like if you use it in as a therapist or coach, which I know many of you are in that field. But also, I heard that many people wish they didn't have that skill because your brain works differently. Actually, from the neuroscience perspective, there is a reticular activating system and also amygdala, which is more active when it comes to people who are more sensitive. Many of you might ask what's a reticular activating system. I'm also going to put a link below to get more information on that. But more or less, the reticular activating system, it decides what is important in the current moment, like what's important and what's not. It decides when our consciousness awareness is activated. Highly sensitive people, for them, everything might be important. Like they would see somebody blinking, or they would see somebody squeezing their eyes. They will see those subtle, small facial expressions, difference in, in somebody body language, those subtle social cues. And also, there is another thing when it comes to the brain, amygdala, which is responsible for emotions, feeling emotions, and also not only that, but recognizing if if somebody is feeling emotions. And research shows individuals who have ability to be sensitive demonstrate greater activation, like the amygdala is more active for them. So it means that, for example, you might be listening to some sad story and it makes you cry. Or if somebody said something really nasty, it would make you feel even like ruminating on that stuff. Like I remember 2 days ago, somebody said something and it was in my head like for 2 days. So I had to consciously do some shifts to um to change the way how I felt about that. Then conflicts, we might be the ones who avoid conflicts. We might be the ones for who the conflict feels more intense. And also the emotional experience, like we might be able to feel so much joy or so much passion. We might be very passionate people, artists. I do believe that certain jobs they require more sensitivity than others. Like you wouldn't like to not necessarily become a lawyer and be a highly sensitive person or a judge. Um, you know, some jobs require more analytical brain, and those kind of people tend to choose them. But enough about that. Also, mirror neurons. So we have in our brain neurons called mirror because, like a mirror, they reflect. Like because of them, we are able to know know what's happening in another person mind, spirit, and also this part of the brain regions activate when we perform or when we observe someone performing, right? So, highly sensitive people often show greater activation in the parts of the brain which are associated with empathy and social awareness. And also, there's another research by Ellen Aron suggesting that highly sensitive people engage in deeper cognitive processing, which means that instead of, let's say there was something going on Saturday, instead of that happen, we would ruminate. Why did this happen? Like, how does it connect to the previous experience? What could happen next? Trying to make sense. So, this deeper processing can produce more insight, more, creativity, intuition, but also it can make us stuck. It can make us overthinking, ruminating, and also having trouble to make a decision. Also, another part of the brain, the insula. It's a part of the brain which is, you know, responsible for the temperature in the brain, for the temperature of our body, but also how we feel the internal world. So the insula cortex helps us to recognize our heartbeat, breathing, physical sensations, emotional states. Also, the interception, the ability to see what's happening inside of my body. And research shows that highly sensitive individuals often show greater activity in that part of the brain, which means they're more prone to be anxious or more hungry or more stressed. They may experience more emotional shifts or physical discomfort. They might get bored more. um, so there's also last thing, but before I get there, I want to, you know, ask you. You might wonder why am I talking about all those parts of the brain and how they work differently for sensitive people. Well, partially it is because it is your brain, and if you have been diagnosed by yourself as a sensitive person, you might want to know this so it helps you to find compassion for yourself. So instead of questioning yourself or feeling, oh, I'm feeling too much, or I don't want to feel this way, instead of denying it or criticizing it or diminishing it, you might see it as a new way of seeing the world around you in not a magical way, but in a different way, different than most people do. And you might discover and see more things that the people around you see. So I would like to challenge like when the next time you have like a wave of emotion coming, either sadness or joy, it could be, anger, anything. I would like you to, yeah, take a deep breath. You can close your eyes and sit with it. And say thank you. Thank you, universe, for allowing me, giving me this opportunity to experience these feelings this way I am. Where most people, they would either not feel it that intensively or push it away. I want you actually, take a space to feel that emotion. And maybe you need to jump. Maybe you need to, throw pillow on the ground or punch a pillow. Maybe you need to do something physically to even more physically extend that emotion and see what comes. In a world where we are conditioned to be less and keep, being in a role, feeling more, might feel uncomfortable for others. They might question, they might question us as a sensitive people of being too much. And I want you to be really careful around that too, because sometimes it is being sensitive, other times it's being traumatized. So that's why therapy is important, and if you're searching for therapy for someone to work with, I have a group of therapists. I can forward it to you. I am working as a consultant as well, if you would like to work with me personally. And why does it matter? Because there are things we need to work on, because some things will come up on the surface as a grief, and those are things we want to manage differently than just, feeling our feelings. So there's a difference between just making a big point on that, being sensitive and feeling it more intensively versus being, traumatized, and our brain works differently when we experience trauma. It changes. Actually, the research makes shows that the amygdala is more active, and the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory, gets smaller, which explains why so many of us don't remember the traumatic event. It's like surviving mechanism. But I will get to this deeper in another video. For now, I just would like to remind you to be aware that there might be people in your life, you maybe met them, who might say, "Oh, I'm sensitive. Like this is, my emotions coming up." But the emotions or whatever comes up should never hurt someone else next to you. And if it does, then it's just get curious to check out where is that really coming from. All right, that's enough for today. And the last part I wanted to say about the brain, like I mentioned earlier, that the body's stress responses involves amygdala, the hippocampus, a pituitary gland, adrenal glands, and so they form this pathway, you can call it. And for some sensitive individuals, they have stronger physical and psychological responses to stress. The nervous system actually reacts faster and more intense. This can have, pluses, minuses. A sensitive child raised in nurturing environment where it's, cherished and celebrated, they can actually thrive exceptionally well. But someone who is growing up in chronically stressful, toxic environment with the same level of sensitivity, they can be an anxious, depressed, vulnerable to anxiety. And this is what the research calls differential sustainability. I'll put the name below. So basically, sensitive people are not simply more vulnerable and more emotional, but they are also more responsive to both negative and positive environments. That's why we get sometimes impacted by other people's moods, and that's why we have to also choose who we keep around us, because that energy, their nervous system, basically impacts our nervous system so much. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Make sure to subscribe it, add to your favorites, and if you want to check out the video, go to my YouTube channel, Expose Network. You will find the link in the intro. Bye.